Yeah, that's cool too.
Giulio Aristide Sartorio. He's Italian. I love their pageantry,
Yeah.
that they have.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, it's kind of like that painting you did that you sold in the Mountain Oyster Club that was at the Russell. There's a sense of that same, I'd say, pageantry in that.
I really would like to do some like that. So,
Yeah.
I've started sketches, but I haven't gone anywhere with them yet. But Indians heading out on a war party with everybody,
Oh, yeah.
waving goodbye and mounting their horses and handing them.
Yes. There's a piece that you might look into, which is Maynard Dixon, that was kind of like that. It's called The Pageant of Tradition. That's in the Sacramento State Library that Dixon did for Anita Baldwin, and it has that same sensibility.
Really?
Yeah, you can find it in books. So, but it's this long kind of, I wouldn't want to say romanticized because Dixon would hate that, but it has that sensibility of a story,
Yeah.
and that's what you're looking for, I think, right?
Yeah.
Kind of.
And the composition, I mean, I love that. Let's see, like, the Parthenon marbles, the Elgin marbles. I love those, all those horses
Yeah.
prancing and guys
Right.
getting on them and stuff, riding them. And that's so inspirational.
By the way, we've started our podcast with Robert Rodriguez
have? Oh.
today. Yeah. So we're just talking. He was showing me some, for those who aren't watching this, he was showing me some images of some paintings that were inspirational, looking forward to his next project. I guess, right? The next one you want to do? Because it takes you a long time to paint, right? You're a slow painter, right?
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
That's as a dealer, that's a love-hate relationship. We love it because there's not that many out there. So we like that component of it, believe it or not. We hate it because we don't get as much work.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got to get faster. But
No, you don't. But it's interesting, that you were this illustrator for your whole career.
Right.
And, when I think of illustrators, I think of time, deadlines, got to be fast, got to have everything done quickly. And
Always made deadlines. Never missed deadlines.
You did?
Ever.
Yeah. No, well, that's why you're successful as an illustrator. But how did you deal with that, with this component of you're kind of methodical and a slower painter? Or maybe that's just for illustrations, that you don't have that for illustrations. It's just for more of the things that you're doing for yourself in the fine art. I don't know.
I wasn't that fast as an illustrator. I just worked, like I have a friend named Brault Braults, who's a great painter. He said he was an illustrator his whole career. And he spoke at Art Center College once, and he said, I'm not any better than anybody else. He says, I just work harder than anybody I know.
There's something really truthful to that, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It really is. I feel the same way for what I do in my own business. Not that I'm smarter, see things different. I think I just work hard.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone does in this space. We work hard.
We do. Yeah. You almost have to, but it's like 16 hours days, And also as an illustrator, I painted in acrylics, so didn't have to worry about drying time.
And did you give that up for fine art?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all oil.
No, it's all oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a couple reasons we're having Robert on. One, I'm a fan of his work, and two, he's going to be part of my rodeo show that opens on February 3rd. So he did a cool picture of a cowgirl, kind of. What's the title of it again?
Ride 'em Cowgirl.
Yeah, Ride 'em Cowgirl. Yeah, it's a very cool piece. We'll put that up on the podcast so people can see it as well.
Cool.
But you have this super interesting story. From what I can tell, and it was like, oh yeah, this is this is a guy I need to just spend time with. So, where did you grow up?
In New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I always wanted to be an artist. I mean, there never was a question. In fact, I recently got in touch with somebody on Facebook that I had been in third grade with, and she said, "You used to always pass me these drawings during class. I'm trying to pay attention, and you'd pass me your drawings to see, and there were all these soldiers fighting with bombs going back and forth." But it was great. I remember the teacher in, like, I don't know, maybe third or fourth grade, she took about 5 of us out of the class, and she put us in another room with big long rolls of butcher paper, and we would draw murals of what we were going to be reading. Now, the thing was, we all had to be a month or so, or 2 weeks at least, ahead of the class in our reading assignments, because we had to know what we were drawing. And so we had to stay ahead of the class, or we couldn't stay in there. But we'd go in and we'd be there for like a couple of hours drawing on the floor, And I think that's when I decided I really want to do this for a living.
Yeah, that's interesting. Was she an art teacher, or was she like an English teacher?
It was grammar school, so she taught everything.
Everything.
And there were no art classes.
Yeah. And you didn't have any art classes in like primary school or middle school?
No. Middle school would be junior high.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I did in junior high. I moved to California then, and they had great classes. We had ceramics.
Oh, yeah. And what was the move? Why did you go from, New Orleans to California, Southern California?
Southern Los Angeles.
Yeah, okay.
That area. My stepfather, my mom just got married, and he wanted to get into motion pictures.
Oh, wow.
And he was a lighting director. He wound up doing real well, getting pretty well known in it. But yeah, so
was this like the late 50s kind of thing, early 60s, right now?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, the school, I had gone to private school in New Orleans, and it was a beautiful old building. It was a mansion that they had turned into a school, and it was just incredible. But when we moved to California, I loved it because the school I went to had been built that year that I started. Everything was new.
Right.
New Orleans, everything was old.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny now because I love going to New Orleans because everything's old.
Yeah, right.
Like that. But at the time it was so interesting to see all this new stuff.
And were you right in L.A.?
No, we were in a place called Sherman Oaks.
Oh, yeah, I know
out near Van Nuys,
Yeah.
kind of in the San Fernando Valley.
Yeah. It's actually closer probably to get to the movie studios from there. Somewhat.
Yeah, some of them, yeah.
Yeah. And that must have been completely different. I mean, because you still live in that area, right? You still live in L.A.?
And well, I live down near Long Beach, further south.
What's that like to see the changes over that period of time? I mean, it's just monumental changes from the 50s to now.
I've lived all over Southern California, Los Angeles area, and I lived in Van Nuys. I mean, in Santa Monica for a long time, and I moved away for a year. And when I came back, it was so much more crowded, so much traffic, and it was so different. I almost got lost. I couldn't find my way around, and I knew that place so well. But yeah, things have really, really changed. I mean, my girlfriend always talks about growing up and you could smell the orange blossoms.
Right.
And now you don't smell that at all.
No.
Where there were orange groves here?
Yeah.
I mean, Orange Grove Boulevard in Pasadena.
Yeah, no, of course.
No orange grove.
Yeah. I remember going over as a kid and seeing all the orange trees and all the orange groves. I'm like, oh, we're in California.
Yeah.
No, not anymore. Different. And so you're growing up as a kid. So middle school on, you're in California.
Yeah, from 6th grade on. Yeah.
And did you find moving over, because they had ceramic courses and other things, actually intensified your love of art and your use doing more things creatively?
I don't know if it's more, but I sure enjoyed it.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
I love that. You know, in fact, we'd go back and forth to New Orleans all the time, summers and stuff. But then,
Because you have family there still, or
yeah,
yeah,
and a house and everything.
yeah.
And let's see, in well, when would it have been? I guess after junior high school, we moved back permanently. My mom could not leave New Orleans. It's something funny about women in New Orleans. They can't leave. Men seem to be able to leave all the time, but women can't. I don't know. I have never figured that out.
Deeper family there, maybe. Maybe there's a real spirit of family and connection.
That might be it. Yeah. That makes sense.
And if you love your family, you love the land, they kind of go synonymously, I think.
Yeah. So we moved back when I went to high school, and I went to high school in New Orleans, and I remember they had Art 1, Art 2, and Art 3.
Right.
All the same teacher, all the same class, nothing different. And my friends in California that I was writing to, the school that I would have been going to,
Right.
they were taking life drawing and oil painting and all kinds of stuff. It was amazing.
Yeah, it must have made you a little angry, actually.
I was really disappointed.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Because at that point, you knew what you wanted to do. You knew you were going to go to art school. Did you know that at that point?
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. I didn't know I was going to be an illustrator, or I didn't even know what you did with art.
Right.
You know?
You just knew you loved it.
Yeah. In fact, I applied to art schools all over the country, but I didn't even bother opening the application, you know, the letters, or I didn't pay any attention to them from anywhere but Los Angeles. I wanted to get back. And my mom told me that I had to go to Chenard, which is where I wound up going,
Yes.
because they gave a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, and I had to have some academics to fall back on if this art thing didn't work. And I always thought that's so funny, because Chenard academics were much easier than high school, probably easier than junior high school.
Oh, that's interesting.
And you know, if I had to fall back on any of that stuff, I mean, there was no question of falling back. I had to be an artist.
Yeah.
I was always going to be an artist of some sort. I didn't know why.
Were your parents proactive for you to be an artist, or was it a love-hate kind of a thing?
No, there wasn't a big discussion. It was just accepted all the way along.
Yes.
I didn't know. At one point, I wanted to be an architect, and then at another point, I wanted to work for Disney. Mm-hmm. I'm sure everybody wanted.
Was that like doing illustration kind of things for Disney? You wanted to do?
No, I wanted to be an animator. This was when I was a kid.
Yeah, for animation.
Yeah. So for my 14th birthday, my mom got me one share of Disney stock, and a tour of Disney Studios.
Oh, wow.
And I went there, and this animator showed us a stack of drawings he had done that morning,
right,
of Mickey Mouse swinging a baseball bat.
Right.
And I thought, oh my God, I don't want to do that. The same drawing over and over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating that it moves, you know, but I don't want to sit there and do that all day.
And when would that have been? Was that like, again, when you're 14?
14. So I was in junior high school.
And what year would that have been approximately?
Probably about 61.
Yeah, 61.
Somewhere around there.
And when did they open Disneyland?
I think that
late
was
50s?
56 or something.
Okay. So Disneyland hadn't been open that long.
No, and I didn't get to go to it. My girlfriend went on the opening day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You never went to Disneyland?
Oh, no, I went there, but I didn't get to go for the opening.
Yeah,
But No, because I had one share of Disney stock at that time. They would give you free trips to Disneyland
Oh my
once a
gosh.
year.
That is
In fact, I think they would close the park down. It was just the stockholders that
yeah.
would get to go.
And did you go with that being a stock?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
You still have that stock?
I've got 356 shares now, and I never bought another one.
Wow. You kept the same one that whole
Just
time.
kept it, and it just kept splitting. And what do they call it?
Yeah, splitting.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I know. I think that's really funny.
Well, it's a way to think of your mom too every
yeah.
time when you see it as well,
Yeah.
which is pretty interesting. So you go to Chenard, and what year was this that you go?
I started in Chenard in 1969. No, in 65.
65.
And I graduated in 69.
So,
Yeah.
and did you get your BFA? That's
Yeah.
what you did. And,
Yeah, I did.
And so when you graduate 69, that's the height, or a little, it's kind of the height, a little past the height, but of the Vietnam War.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you're out of college now.
Yeah.
And your potential, can be drafted.
Well,
right?
I started working right away as an illustrator. And my mom had just, she had the best job she ever had. Well, second best that she ever had. She was looking for a job. She had always been a secretary, private secretary in the oil industry. And then she decided to leave that, and she was looking for a job, but she went to an employment agency, and they wound up hiring her to work at the agency. And she got jobs for executives and stuff, and she loved it. But then the company closed, and so I wound up supporting her. And so I didn't go to Vietnam
because you were the sole supporter of your family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And she had health problems too at that time.
Yes.
So let's see. And then years later, she actually was feeling good, I guess. And she came to visit me in California, and she said, "You work too hard. You don't make enough money." She says, "I'm going to get you some work." And I said, "Sure, go ahead." Well, she decided to become an artist rep agent. And and it was funny because she was only representing me, and I already had 5 other agents around the country. And I said, "I can't do all this work." I said, "If you're going to actually do this, you've got to get some other artists."
Right. Can't just
She
be
got
me.
some really good artists.
Yeah. Who did she get? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah, but I don't know. Do you know illustrators?
Some.
Charles White III. It was one of the airbrush artists, and Dave Willardson. They were both together. And they were one of the early California airbrush artists. And a guy named Stan Watts from he was fantastic. Cameron, no wait, what's his name? I forgot. No, but she had about 9 or 10 really good artists. A lot from Atlanta and a lot from Dallas. And she drove up and down the Mississippi all the way up to Chicago and back.
Getting the jobs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And meeting art directors. I think she liked it. She sort of wound up becoming a mother to all these art directors.
Yeah, I could see it. She likes creativity. And so when you graduated from college with your BFA, and you emphasized illustration during that time at school or not?
I did. Your second year, you had to choose your major.
Yeah.
And I did switch to go to illustration. But at one point, there was a review with the faculty, and you had to talk to them, sit there, and they'd interview you. And I said, "I'm thinking about switching from illustration to fine art." And I remember one teacher said, he said, "Imagine this. You're 10 years out of school. you've only sold 1 or 2 paintings, but so that means you're not making a living. So you have to have a day job. But when you come home at night, you go in your studio and you paint because you love it so much.
Right.
Would you do that? And I thought about it and I said, no, I wouldn't. I love it. But man, I have to make a living doing this. I can't do this as a hobby.
Right.
And so he said, stick with illustration. So I did. And
Are you glad you did that?
yes and no. The only thing was in the 80s, I really thought about going into Western art. And I wound up buying a house instead. And then I thought I better not do that. And I wish I had done it then. It would have been probably a good time. I don't know. Maybe not.
80s would have been a great time, no doubt. But
Yeah.
you just don't know, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of amazing stuff since then as an illustrator. So, I wouldn't have done that.
Yes.
And so I don't know. In one way, I'm real happy I stayed.
When you're getting to do both, so you're painting now as a fine artist.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound conceited or anything, but it's just amazing to me how quickly this has all come about. It's like I just started doing it, and within about 6 months or something, people were calling. I mean, I don't understand it. I never got that kind of response as an illustrator.
Well, you've got 50 years of experience.
Well, that's true.
And we'll talk about some of those experiences because that's the basis for, you build, you work. I mean, you're at your, at the premium point in your career where you can do anything. I mean, you can probably paint anything.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And you choose to do something that's coming from the heart versus somebody telling you what to do. And, that gives you new love for what you're doing, and it probably shows in your artwork.
And that's why I finally made the switch more than any other reason was I had been doing for 9 years, I had been doing posters, the official poster for a event in New Orleans called Tales of the Cocktail. It's an international liquor industry event. And they, in fact, I was working on a job for a client who imported absinthe. And I said, I'll send you the sketch next week. And he says, oh, I won't be here. I'm going to New Orleans for Tales of the Cocktail. And I said, what is that? I've never heard of it.
Right.
I'm from New Orleans.
Right.
And he told me about it, and I looked him up, and they'd been in business for 9 years, and it's a huge event, and they didn't have any posters. So I thought, you guys need a poster, but you can't very well call someone out of the blue and just say, hey, pay me $5,000 and I'll do you a poster.
Right.
They're going to say, no, thanks.
Right.
So I called them up and I sent them my work and I said, you need a poster and I'll do it for you and I'll do it for free and I'll pay to get it printed. You give me a place where I can sit and sell them and I'll pay you 10%. I said, come on down.
Yeah, I bet.
They put me up in a hotel and everything. And the thing was, I didn't have time to do it. I only had 2 weeks. So the week before, I had done a magazine cover in L.A. About bartenders, how important they were nowadays, how it was a whole new thing. You know, it was like mixologists.
Yeah.
And I swiped pieces from that digitally on the computer and did just a little bit of painting. in addition, and put it together and made the poster, and I got it printed and delivered to New Orleans in 2 weeks. And then a bartender came up to me and he said, "You stole that." And I go, "No, I didn't." And he goes, "Yeah, that was on the cover of LA Weekly just last week. You stole it." And I go, "No, I stole it for myself."
Yeah. What did he say to that?
He goes, "Oh, well, nice to meet you."
Yeah. How do you answer that to a guy when he says you stole it and it's your own?
I know. I thought that was funny. I didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
You know? I said, "Well, I was influenced by J.C. Leyendecker, but I didn't steal it. It's all mine." And he kept insisting. And I said, "Where? From who?" "I don't know the artist." Anyway, so I got spoiled working for this, doing these posters. They would give me the cocktail they wanted to promote and the motto for that year, the theme.
Right.
And I would come up with an image. I wouldn't even show them. I'd just send it to the printer, and then I'd show it to them.
Right.
But it was, it was my choice. After that, doing those posters for a little while, I'd go back and I'd do sketches for projects I was working on as illustrations. And these art directors would make revisions. And I'd go, "But what's wrong with it the way it is?"
Right.
And no, it has to be changed.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be anything important. It would be change the color of their shirt.
Right.
Because my wife doesn't like green
Yeah.
shirts.
Right.
So I couldn't take it anymore. And I just said, "I've got to do this."
Yeah.
My friends were all telling me, "You've got to get into Western art. You're not going to make as much money as you did as an illustrator, but it's just so much more satisfying."
Yeah. Once you got that taste of freedom doing the posters for the drinks, then you were like, "Oh yeah, I don't need somebody telling me about
it.
green."
It was like,
What year was this that this happened?
oh, that wasn't long ago.
No, I
That
figured
was,
since you were doing digital changes.
that was only 3 years ago, 2 years ago, something like that. The last illustration I did was November of last year. Of 21. The last illustration. And that kind of helped because it was a really big job, paid a lot of money, and it just, I said, "Wow, where'd all that money come from?" And then I remembered that job, and I said, "Now's the time to do it."
Right.
I can live a year or two on this money, and so time to get established in Western art.
And so when you took that leap, that was like 3 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I had been dabbling a little bit. And 3 years ago.
And did you call some of your friends, some of your illustrator friends that had,
of course,
you made, I would assume, that had made the jump? Because I mean, I have illustrators that were, like Dennis Semensky and Francis Livingston. Those
and I've known
Eric Bowman.
I've known Eric for a long time. Since my kids were little.
Yeah.
But Dennis, I met a few years ago, but I've known his work forever.
Yes.
And Thomas Blackshear, Ezra Tucker.
Yes.
And Robert Krogel. So a lot of my friends are all doing Western art, and they actually, it seems like most of them, well, not most of them, but a lot of them got into it because illustration was actually slowing way, way down.
Yeah, and changing to all digital stuff, right?
Yeah, which I don't mind. I mean, I didn't know that I would want to do it. In fact, I was teaching at Art Center College of Design, and students were bringing in this work, and I'd go, "This isn't original. This is printed.
Right.
What is this?" And they go, "This is on the computer." I go, "You could do that on the computer?" I knew people. In fact, I had a computer, and all I could do was lettering on it.
Right.
it was in black and white,
Right.
you know? And so one of my students showed me a little bit of stuff, and then another friend of mine was learning, and he had a real good sense for it, and he gave me a 2-hour lesson. And I went home. I said, I can actually use this now. I said, but what I want to do is I want to paint traditionally. I don't want to ever give that up.
Mm-hmm.
And then scan it in and then mix it with three-dimensional objects and stuff and put it together on the computer. And I did that for about a year. And then I said, what am I bothering painting for? This is so much faster.
Right.
And I just started painting completely with the computer. And I loved it. It was exciting. It was like a whole new way of working. And the same with switching to oils, you
Yes.
know? It was like, it's a whole new take on things. But even with oils, sometimes I find myself painting and thinking, what should I do at this point? Now, when I painted with acrylics, I used to put a big piece of acetate over it and change the color or change the design
Mm-hmm.
on the acetate and see how it looked. With nowadays, what I do is I take a photo, I run over to the computer, scan it in,
Mm-hmm.
and then adjust it and go, yeah, that's what I should do. And I
Yeah.
go back and work on it.
And work on it that way.
Um,
When did you end up at Art Center?
I actually didn't attend Art Center.
No, I know, but you taught there, right?
I started there when my first son was born, 1960. No, I mean, wait, what am I saying? 1990.
Yeah.
1990.
So in fact, let's back it up just a little bit. So you graduate from college.
Right.
Do you immediately get a job as an illustrator? Are you
Yeah.
doing freelance? Are you working for
Well,
a company or what's
there
going
was
on?
this amazing illustrator, amazing student in my class who quit. He didn't even graduate.
Mhm.
He started a design studio in LA named Peter Palombi. He was one of the he was sort of the second wave of airbrush illustrators. But when I knew him, he didn't work that way. But his best friend in my class came back to class one day, and he was really angry. And he says, man, that guy, he says, I went over, he wouldn't even give his best friend a job. So he was really mad. So I was at an agency showing my work, and they said, you went to Chenard, you know Palumbi, he's just down the block. So I thought, well, I'll go see if he's there. I didn't bring my portfolio in. I just went to say hi.
Right.
He wouldn't give his best friend any work.
Right.
He's not going to give me any work. So I went to say hi, and Peter said, where's your portfolio? I said, oh, I just left it in the car. He goes, bring it in. He goes, I want to, he said, so I brought it in, he looked at it, and he says, do you mind if I show my partners? They're out to lunch right now, but come back in an hour. So I went and had lunch, and when I came back, he said, you know, I have these storyboards I'm working on. They're due tomorrow morning. Can you help me do these tonight? So I did, and then the next day they had something else for me to work on. And I was there for about 3 months, and they kept having work. And then one of the design studios in town wasn't going to hire me, but they said that I could have a free desk and I could work there and I could use their art supplies. Right. So I asked one of the partners, I said, do you know how long you're going to want me for work? Because I have this offer to go work at Group West. And he said, you can't go there. You work for us. Nobody told me.
Right.
And I said, okay, I work for you. Fine. I love it. This is great. So I was there Peter left after 4 years, and I left after 5. And Peter, when he left and went on his own, he got really well known. He was probably the best known illustrator in LA. And then I finally thought it's time for me, so I left. And it was really easy because I had done so much commercial work, so much printed work. I'd go and I'd show art directors, and they'd say, "Hey, you did this for me. I thought Palumbi did it." And they go, "No, I did." So they'd accept me, that I had been working,
Right.
and I'd get work right away. So there was no slow period for me. I started right off, and that was all because of working in that studio.
So you would do it independently? You would work independently, or did you have an agent that would contact and bring you jobs?
No, I worked on my own, but I realized after not very long that it would take me 2 weeks to get work. I'd go every day and see about 5 or 6 art directors.
Right.
And it'd take me 2 weeks, and I'd come back and I'd work on a job for 2 weeks. And then I'd go, "Where's the work?"
Right, I need more work.
Another 2 weeks.
Right.
So I thought, if I had someone out there getting me work, showing it for those 2 weeks, when I was done, when I came up for air, they'd have something new. So I did. I went and I found out there were things called representatives.
Right.
And I went out and I got one. And then I got one in Chicago who also got me one in New York. And then my mom was repping me, and then I got one in San Francisco. Now, all my San Francisco reps quit. They all said artists looked like they were having, in fact, my New York rep did too. The artists looked like they were having more fun than the reps. So one of them, Jim Lilly, he wound up getting into what's it called? Stand-up comedy, but like the committee,
Like improv?
Improv. That's the word. Yeah. He got into improv, and another one became a dancer. And
These were the art reps?
Yeah, art reps. They just thought we were having too much fun. They wanted to do it too. But yeah, I always had, and then I had a couple in Europe. And so I was always busy.
You were super busy.
Yeah.
And you were working in acrylics?
Yeah.
And were you doing any movie posters or things like that since you were in LA?
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of movie posters, but I've done about 6, something like that. I remember working for Palumbi. We had a style where we would do in pen and ink, you'd draw the thing, and then on vellum. And with magic markers, you'd color it, and you'd wipe it with tissue paper, toilet paper. And smear it, and you can render things that way. It's a really interesting style. Palumbi did it as finished art. I only did it for comps, for comprehensive sketches. So Tony Seiniger Design, a big movie poster design studio in LA, hired me to do some comps for a movie poster, and I did them that way. Nobody told me differently. Well, when I finished, when I delivered it, Tony put his arm around me. He says, "Look, I know this is the first time you've ever done this." He said, "So we'll use you again, but if you want to do movie posters, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about almost finished paintings."
Right.
And I said, "Oh, I didn't know that." And I thought, wow, you pay really well for magic marker comps, So they did. They gave me a lot of work, and I wound up doing the finished poster for The Two Jakes, which was a sequel to Chinatown with Jack Nicholson.
Yes.
I don't know why, but I always wound up doing sequels. I've done so many. I did City Slickers too.
Yeah.
I did Jewel of the Nile, which was a sequel to Romancing the Stone.
Yes.
And about 6 others. it was funny on City Slickers too. They called the illustrators. They had about 5 of us, and they said, "We're not doing comps on this. There's no time. We want you to start right in on finish. You just come up with a concept,
Right.
and you do the finish painting, and come in 2 days, I think, in the morning with as much as you have done. And then whatever one we like the most, we're going to have you do the rest of it, and you'll do the finished poster." So for City Slickers 2, I had designed it, and the coolest part was Jack Palance.
Yes.
I had
Great
his
actor.
face made out of the buttes and mesas in the background. And I knew that was the coolest part of the picture, and I knew that's what was going to sell it. So I really finished that, and I only sort of laid in the rest of it. So the next morning when I came in, they picked mine. Ezra did one too.
Oh, that's funny.
Which I was really worried about going up against his
Ezra
work.
Tucker.
He does the most amazing horses.
Right.
And he makes them up. I mean, he's incredible. But I hadn't finished my horses, so they didn't compare them. So I got the finish, and that was really cool. In fact, I was in Texas. I have stuff in a show in the Kerrville Museum of Western Art.
Right.
And I went up to Fredericksburg because they've got great bakeries in Fredericksburg, and I always stop there for pastries and coffee. And then I stopped in a gallery, a beautiful gallery called Insight Gallery.
Yeah, it is a really lovely gallery.
And I didn't have my art because it's all in the show in Kerrville. So all I had was some books I put together of my illustration work. So I was showing them that, and the woman there said, "Oh my God, you did City Slickers too." She said, "That's my husband, my favorite movie. We use that all the time when we play charades."
Oh, that's funny.
And so later they invited me to be in their group show in the fall, it's on there now.
Right.
And it's just such an amazing gallery. I want to live in there. Beautiful.
Did you ever get to meet any of the actors that were in that show?
No.
Do you ever get to meet any of those, or even work? Do you ever get to work with any of the directors or the producers, or is it just through?
No, just through the design studios.
Yeah. Got it.
But you know what? When I said my stepfather was doing lighting for movies.
Mm-hmm.
Now at the time, I didn't know anything about it, but I did a comp for the movie Ed Wood.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah. They wound up using photography instead of illustration.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was working on that, I said, "These people look real familiar." And I checked, and my stepfather did the lighting on one of Ed Wood's movies.
Oh, that's funny.
When he was first starting.
Back in the day.
And I was there. And the thing that fascinated me is there's this, I can't remember the actor's name, Tor, I think, was this big wrestler-looking guy that was in Ed Wood's movie. And it fascinated me because when I went that night to watch him film, they had Hershey's chocolate syrup all over him. And my stepfather said, they use that for blood because in black and white it looks
Doesn't
the same.
matter.
And it drips the same way.
It's viscous.
And I thought, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then this woman came in looking like Vampira, you know. I don't know what her name was, but she was in all the movies. So I was there. I saw, and then I don't know what movie he worked on, but I saw it. It was so cool.
Comes all the right way around. The circle of life.
Yeah, and it was Ed Wood's famous for making the worst movies in history, and my stepfather was just starting. So.
Work is work.
Yeah.
But the movie Ed Wood that they redid, I think the main guy got an Academy Award for that.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Yeah, there was an Academy Award. I know. That was a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
So you also did a bunch of postage stamps, right? Didn't you do stamps?
Yeah. Yeah. A friend of mine, post office is strange. They will not look at portfolios, or, I mean, I suppose they must in some way, but they don't find their artist and just by looking at portfolios. You can't call them up and say, hey, can I do a stamp and take a look at my work? They're not interested. But a friend of mine was doing a stamp, and as he was walking out the door, he heard him saying, we need to find a Hispanic artist to do the Cinco de Mayo postage stamp. And he said, well, do you know Robert Rodriguez? And they said, no. And he showed them online, and they said, oh. And so they called me, and I did Cinco de Mayo. It was my first stamp.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, it's strange because the art directors for the Postal Service, they have their artists that they work with, and they rarely use one of the other art directors' artists. And so it was disappointing. I did about 19 postage stamps over the years, but the post office was really cutting back, and any of their art directors that lived west of the Mississippi, they fired them. They laid them off because they couldn't pay to fly them back east for meetings. I mean, is that terrible or what?
Sounds like the post office.
So,
honestly.
So that was my art director. So I don't get to do stamps anymore.
Would you do it anyway now? I mean, doing what you do and founding.
Oh, no, actually, I'm not really interested in doing any illustration.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, you're probably right in your groove right now, right?
Yeah. Things are happening. So yeah, that's where I'm heading. And I don't get excited about it.
Yeah, well, you've done 19 stamps. Didn't you do the oatmeal?
Yeah, Quaker Oats.
Yeah, right.
I did the Quaker and Santitas corn chips.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? Oh, I've done Berea pasta bottles.
Yeah.
Some artwork for that, and yeah, I've done a lot of stuff. Super Bowl posters. And,
how many of those have you done?
2.
Yeah. Dennis did one of those as well. Dennis Zeminski. He did a Super Bowl. You guys have that in common. And Mel has done at least one postage stamp.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. Also, who was an illustrator? He was an illustrator the same time you were. Right?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I knew his work as an illustrator before I ever knew him as a fine artist.
He did airbrush stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, originally.
He was good. And then I was in Park City, Utah, skiing once, and I went in an art gallery, and there were some paintings of his. I thought, wow, Ed Mel, it's the same guy. I can tell. I can tell the work is, it's totally different, but there's something about it you can recognize.
No, it's true. I have one of his early illustrations in my house, and you can still go, oh, yep, that's it. And that one's airbrushed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that's the same for yours, though. I'm sure we could look at your posters and different things and see you and the paintings you're doing now. Yeah. No, that's because you have your own voice and your own style. Yeah. You've been doing it for so long. So it's there. I'm going to go look at a bunch of them, in fact, and see.
Yeah.
And so you do all this, and then how did Art Center happen? Getting back to that in 1990.
They were getting, what is it called? Accreditation.
Yes.
And they had to have Hispanic. They had to have different races teaching and stuff.
Right.
So they called me and asked me to teach a class. Now, I always feel bad because as far as what I learned in grammar school, I'm not Hispanic. I think Hispanic is if your background is the Western Hemisphere. My dad was born in Granada in Spain. So I said, I'm not really Hispanic. And they said, "We don't care. We just want your last name."
But he was from Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty Spanish.
Yeah, it's Spanish. So
About as Spanish as you can get.
So I wound up teaching there for 15 years. And the school was changing a lot. They were, nobody wanted to do illustration anymore, which I can't really blame them. They all wanted to do character design and background and stuff for animation, for movies.
Mm.
And I didn't know anything about that.
Right.
You know? I mean, I had friends that were in that business, you know, and so I'd ask them questions. What should people do? But they all just wanted to do rough sketches. Nobody wanted to do finished art.
Mm.
And I didn't. I mean, I could help them with composition, but other than that, I didn't know what I could teach them. I didn't have much to tell them. I didn't know anything about the business end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept thinking, I'm going to quit. But I never did, because it was cool. I really enjoyed. I enjoyed meeting the students, and I learned, like they always say, you learn as much from your students.
No, it's true, right?
You really do.
And you probably had some pretty good students that came through, right? Did you have any
amazing
ones that stick out that have kind of taken it to the next level?
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe they're not huge names or anything, but they've all done really well. There's one guy who did want to do background and what do you call it? In films, when they have a scene, maybe they film it in the summer, but they have someone go in and paint the leaves off the trees and the snow on the ground.
Right, almost like they did old photographs where they hand color them.
Yeah, and he got really well known. Oh man, I'm not thinking of his name.
It happens there.
Craig Mullins.
Craig Mullins.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Does he still do that?
Yeah, he's really well known.
Yeah.
He's a big name. Funny thing is, maybe I shouldn't say this. It's funny. There's some of the very best students I ever had, I gave the worst grades to, because they basically blew off school. Not because I knew they were great. I knew how good they were, but they just never came to anybody's classes because they were so good. They shouldn't have even bothered going to school anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I've had some really great students. Disappointingly, two of the best I ever had, illustrators. They only did it for maybe 6 months and then said, I hate this. And they became real estate agents.
Oh, yeah. That's
both of them.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And they were really fantastic artists.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard job. Illustration's a very hard job.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's, I don't know. I can't say because I'm not an illustrator, but it seems like it's a very demanding occupation.
Yeah, and the thing was that I always think, that I realize now with my paintings, I mean, people buy these and they love them and they put them in their homes. I mean, in a place of honor. You know?
Sure.
And they're always telling me how much they love their painting. And with illustration, you do a project. The only way you know that the art director liked it is he didn't call you back and make you change it. And you see it printed the next week, next month. It's like, it isn't very satisfying,
Yeah.
It's just so nice to realize that people actually spending their own money. It's not their clients' money, their
Right.
money
Right.
to buy it.
To buy it and take it home. And so you do that for Art Center for 15 years. You teach. That's a long time. And then why did you finally say, okay, I've had enough of that? Or did something else come up? Or?
You know, the funny thing was I didn't. There was a teacher there who didn't like me for some reason. I mean, the first day I met him, he took a dislike to me, and I don't understand it. But the head of the illustration department, the chairman, was a really well-known illustrator named Phil Hayes,
Mm-hmm.
who was a fantastic illustrator and a really nice person. Well, he died, and when he died, there were 2 co-chairs until the new one came that they hired to be the chairman, till she came to the school. And one of them was my friend, and he called me up and he says, I don't know why, but this guy doesn't like you. And he said, I couldn't do anything about it. But the thing was, we were on school break, and usually they would send me my class list of
Right.
students a couple of weeks before school started. And I felt like, gee, when school started? I haven't got my class list. So I called the school up, and they said, no, you haven't got a class list because you don't work here. And I go, what?
Wow.
And so then I talked to my friend who was the co-chair, and he says, yeah, I couldn't do anything about it. He doesn't like you, so you're gone.
Wow. That had to be devastating.
No, I didn't care. I was really, like I said, I just hadn't gotten around to quitting. But so I was just angry because after 15 years, I thought that was a pretty lousy way to.
Yeah, at least give you a call.
Yeah.
Say why, something.
Yeah, I didn't even know. But
so you went right into going back to doing more illustrations at that point in time?
Yeah, I was sort of relieved because, I mean, man, it was like I would be up until 4 a.m. and I have to be in class at like 9.
The 4 a.m. working on illustrations.
Working on illustration.
Right.
And then be in class to teach at 9, and I was always there. But, you know, I thought, well, this gives me more time. I can sleep, actually. This is better. So yeah. So that really, I really didn't mind at all. And they didn't pay you anything. I think it was like, what I got out of it was like $400 a month.
Yeah.
I only taught 1 day a week, but still, you know, it wasn't worth the money.
Yeah.
But I did meet some great people that are still friends of mine.
Yeah,
know?
I'm sure you did it more for being around the creative souls.
Yeah.
As much as anything, I would think.
And the cool thing was about it, I thought, was the very best class I ever had. I mean, usually there were some standout students in every class, but there might be 2 or 3. This one class, there were about 6 really amazing people that I thought, what are you even in school for? You should be working already.
Right.
And even the ones that were no good were at least average.
Right.
And that year, the classes would vote for the best teacher, the great teacher award, they called it. And that year I got it.
Oh, wow.
Which was cool. That meant a lot to me.
Yeah, I bet. Well, it solidifies that, you deserve to be there, right, in your own mind.
Yeah. And I really loved it that it was such a good class that voted for me.
Yeah, all good artists. Yeah. Well, they would see it. So now, when you make this final switch, after you do these alcohol ads, the posters,
right,
and you go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do fine art, right? And that hasn't been that long ago, right?
No.
3 or 4 years ago?
2 or 3.
Yeah, 2 or 3. So very short. So how did you do that? I mean, I think that'll be very helpful for other artists that are going, okay, I want to do something else, and how do I do that?
I had been doing some paintings, not Western paintings, or not a lot of them anyway, but I'd been doing some paintings for years. I mean, not years, but for 4 years, I guess. And I applied for a show in San Dimas, California, just near me, because I knew I could get into it. I knew it was a small show, and I knew that, that they would accept my work. And so I applied to that, and I had 2 Orange Crate labels that I had done in there, and both of them sold. And then I also got Best New Artist Award for the show. So that was sort of an introduction, and in doing fine art, selling paintings. And after that, I entered the Russell auction, and I had and I had a booth at the Out West Art Show in Great Falls. Now, the Russell auction, I guess I did Great Falls first, because the Russell auction was the year COVID hit, and it went
Canceled.
virtual.
Yeah.
And so I was watching it on TV, on YouTube or something, and I'm watching, and I mean, really good artists were not selling their work.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, geez.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I'm in bad trouble. So mine goes up and nobody's bidding. And then all of a sudden a couple of people bid. And then the auctioneer told some sort of a joke. And all of a sudden people started bidding. And my painting sold for more than it sold for the mid-range.
Right.
But it sold for more than my reserve. So I was real happy. And then they invited me back again, and sold a bigger painting, and that one sold for $10,000, which I was happy with that.
Yeah, and then you did it last year.
Yeah,
summer, because I saw your stuff and I saw you there.
Yeah. In fact, that's the one I'm talking about. That
sold. You mean?
Sold.
Yeah,
for
at
10.
the auction. Yes.
Yeah, and then. I did the Russell Suites. That's where I saw you. And that was booths also.
Yes, correct.
And, and I sold some things. I made a mistake too. I had talked to somebody about entering a miniature show. And then I missed the deadline.
Right.
And I mean, I don't miss deadlines as an illustrator, but again, the painting in oils, the paint won't dry in time. And I missed the deadline. So I thought, well, I blew it there. I can't be in the show. So I took the painting to Great Falls and I sold it.
Yeah.
And when I got back, the guy called me and says, "Where's your painting?" And I said, "Oh, I blew the deadline. I couldn't, so I sold it." And he goes, "No, I wanted that one in the show." He says, "I would have given you more time."
Yeah.
So I don't know. So now I guess I'll ask in the future.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, you never know. That's exactly right.
But I've done that a couple of times, sold paintings that were supposed to be for other things.
And you did the Mountain Oyster show here in Tucson.
I did.
Sold your big painting there.
I sold all 3.
Yeah.
No, 2.
Yeah.
2 this time.
They were probably the most expensive paintings in the show, maybe.
Really?
That sold, I think. They're right up there, I'm sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I had been in it once before, and I thought the painting was too expensive. I was asking $7 for it, and it didn't sell. And I thought, oh, well, everything here that's been selling is all $3,500, so I'll do smaller paintings. But Alicia really liked that big painting.
Yeah.
And she entered it without asking me.
And she was smart.
And it got in. And then it sold. So
yeah, it was a beautiful painting.
thank you. No, I I really had a ball doing that. You know, that influenced by Bouguereau and the Pre-Raphaelites and the Victorian painters.
Right. Yeah, you could see the Victorian influence for sure.
I always thought it was funny. I love Bouguereau's work, and whenever you go, there's a ton of his stuff in the U.S. Whenever you see his work, they're always tall paintings, and so they're hung where the people, and he painted a lot of barefoot girls and women and stuff, and their feet are always right about here, so you get a real good view of his feet, but the heads are way up there. Right. You can't see them. So when I think of Bouguereau, I always think of this beautiful feet he painted. So when I did that painting, I really wanted to accentuate the feet.
Yeah, they were beautiful.
And I had a ball.
I'll put a picture of that too in the podcast for the YouTube people that are watching it. Yeah. So you've had this long career. You've been an illustrator. Right. You've been a teacher. Now you're a fine art painter of Western Native arts.
Right.
What do you have to tell those individuals that maybe are just starting their career? You know, recommendations after living this life of.
Well, I would say do what you want to do from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, illustration worked great for me. It did what I wanted. It gave me a place to learn. And like you said, I can paint anything. I mean, because in an illustrator, you paint anything.
Right.
And I always thought it was funny when people say, well, I can't paint hands. But I thought, sure you can. I mean, it's just paint hands. You know, what do you mean? You know, I can't paint cars. You know, right. you paint anything.
Right.
But illustration was great at the time, but even though it wasn't what you'd call the golden age of illustration, it was almost the second golden age when I started, and it was really, there was plenty of work. I mean, I used to turn down 3/4 of the jobs that got offered, because there was so much work. I always thought it was amazing that somewhere in the United States or in Europe even, but at least 4-5 times a month, somebody wanted me to do a job for them. I thought, isn't that incredible? How come? There's so many great artists out there. How come? But I guess they were all doing that, you know? Nowadays, I wouldn't recommend it. It's really gone downhill.
Yeah, I bet it's hard to do illustration now. And pretty soon AI will probably be doing a lot of these.
I've been seeing about that.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
They'll just put it all in, what you want, and the art directors will just use AI to come up with what they want.
And in your style.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
You could already do that. You could take everything that you've ever painted and put it in, and they could probably come up with a pretty good Robert Rodriguez painting, and you would go, dang, that's mine. Yeah, no, that's a scary thing for artists and for art dealers too. You know, we have to deal with whatever that means too.
Well, like I said, I had switched to digital after that student showed me. But like I said, I had thought I never stopped painting because I loved it. But there were so many revisions. I mean, you couldn't do any jobs without getting a revision on it, no matter how good it was.
Right.
And it just didn't make any more sense. I know a friend of mine back east sent an art director his oil painting, and the art director called him up and said, "What is this?"
Oh, God.
He said, "That's your painting." And he goes, "What am I supposed to do with it?" The guy was like 22 years old and had never gotten an original piece of art before.
He didn't know what to do with it. Wow.
And so the illustrator had to explain, well, you send it out and get it scanned, and then you print it. And it got really mad at him for sending an original oil painting. But anyway, I forgot what I was going to
Well,
say.
and also if people want to find you, they can go to your website, right? That's robertrodriguezart.com. Is that
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have a Facebook or Instagram account too that you remember?
I have Facebook, Robert Rodriguez Illustration, I
Yes.
think.
Uh-huh.
It's still there. I don't use Facebook very often.
Yeah.
And my son put me on Instagram, but I don't keep up with that. But yeah, my website's probably the best.
Yeah, I went to it. It had a lot of stuff. It was good. You
Yeah.
can see all the different things that you had done. And then we have you coming up for our show as well. There you go.
And there's some
here's-
other websites.
This is the thing for people to see. We'll put this up here as well. But yes, we'll have a great painting of your work in my rodeo show, which is cool too. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me today, and also for giving me a great piece of art for my show. I love it. It's really fantastic. Yeah,
that'll be exciting.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I've been waiting. I wondered what it's gonna final product what's that image gonna look like, and because you have such creativity and you've got an open book, right? You don't have to, my for this show, I was like rodeo / genre / cowboy / do what you want to do, because I find that artists do the very best when you don't give them much parameters and just say, here it is, use your creativity. That's what you do for a living. That's
right.
What you dream about, probably.
Oh yeah. I mean, I didn't ever mind so much with illustration doing what other people wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
They never gave me anything that I had to follow. I mean, even if they gave me a rough sketch, I mean, you should see these sketches. They were so loose.
Right,
I mean,
I'm sure.
I could do anything. So it was always my composition, my take on it.
Yes.
But they'd say, we have to have a certain image in there, something, because that's what they're selling.
Right.
But I never mind that. I always had plenty of creativity.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But now, yeah, I mean, I just love it.
Wide open.
Yeah, it's wide open. Yeah. And no, I mean, I did worry a little bit. Without someone telling me what to paint, would I come up with the ideas? No problem.
Yeah, I bet not.
I've got pages and pages pages of ideas.
No, there's probably more ideas than time will allow in your life.
Ever. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, thank you for inviting me
It was
to the
really
show.
wonderful having you on the podcast, and you're going to try to make it back for the show, I hope.
I will.
Yeah, great. All right, Robert. Very good. Thank you. It's always wonderful to get to see you, and we'll go out and have some lunch or something now. All right. Sounds good. Thanks.